Yuri is a character from the Street Fighter series, a South Korean fighter proficient in Taekwondo who derives pleasure from causing harm to others. Unlike Ryu, who seeks meaning, Yuri is vengeful, ruthless, and selfish, finding extreme joy in inflicting pain on her enemies. She can easily lose her temper when struck, retaliating swiftly without warning. Yuri loves fighting to the point where she feels frustrated when her request for a match is rejected, as was the case when Rashid dismissed her challenge. She remarked, "He can die," in a very cunning manner. However, at times, she becomes melancholic and feels loneliness, suggesting that all her tricks and cruelty are just a cover for the sadness within. Despite her harsh, vengeful behavior, she still has a mysterious sense of doing good, as she spared the life of a small child despite many civilians falling victim in a firefight. Yuri seems to despise harming children and sees evil Ryu as a type even more ruthless than herself. Yuri is also somewhat hypocritical, mocking the suffering of Cammy and Dikopra at the hands of Bison despite experiencing similar pain in her own childhood. She has described Vega as a sexual deviant, while occasionally deriving sexual pleasure from causing harm to others. At the age of 15, Yuri was a prominent practitioner of Taekwondo. Her father was a lawyer assigned to prosecute the operations of organized crime. When Shadaloo became a target, her family was kidnapped by the organization. During the ordeal, Yuri lost her parents and sustained serious injuries to her eyes. 10 years later, she underwent surgery in the organization's lab where a feng shui engine was implanted in her nearly lost eye. People working on her surgery noted her calm demeanor. Yuri assassinates agents in a public area as her first mission to test the device. Chun-Li is summoned to the scene to stop the massacre, and a woman dies in the attack due to unintended damages. The battle between Yuri and Chun-Li ends with Chun-Li striking Yuri and throwing her as a victim to the ground. Yuri prepares to execute a finishing blow, but the feng shui engine malfunctions, forcing her to flee to the lab. Seth appoints Yuri to capture the elite female assassins working for Bison. She manages to defeat all the killers, including Julie and Juni, carrying the unconscious assassins away from the security personnel, including Cammy and Guile. During the world tournament hosted by Seth, Yuri is sent to participate, seeing it as the perfect opportunity for some fun. Throughout the tournament, she faces Cammy and Chun-Li once again. The results of the battles are unknown. At the end of the tournament, she approaches Seth, who is incapacitated due to the brutal beating from Bison, and mocks him, saying he is nothing more than a Bison's spare body. Before getting rid of him, she reveals that she was using the organization for her own purposes and was merely trying to provoke Seth and Bison against each other. She crushes Seth and then leaves him to die. After a short time since the fall of the organization, Bison confronts Yuri again seeking revenge for her family. However, he quickly attacks her, grabs her head, tears off her feng shui engine, and leaves her to die. She encounters Colin, sent by Helen, who compensates for the device. She runs into Balrog, who is looking for her, and fights him until Ed informs her that they need to return to the base to discuss the plan. Later, she meets C. Viper, who informs her that the only reason she's not in prison is that she's not the main threat and warns her about Shadaloo's motives. Later at the Shadaloo base, she searches for data about the organization. Yuri faces Fang, who insults her for her statements about being second in command. Their battle ends with Fang using toxic gas clouds to force Yuri to retreat. Yuri now understands her motives and calls Colin to finally accept her offer to overthrow Shadaloo. When Rashid and Azam meet Nash and Helen, Yuri arrives and kicks the door. She looks at everyone in her team and decides to attack Rashid. He tells her to stop fighting, and she threatens to kill him unless he fights her seriously. Azam intervenes to defend Rashid. Helen breaks up the conflict and explains the danger of the Black Moons, presenting a plan to stop Shadaloo. Yuri shows interest in the plan and joins. In Brazil, when Cammy defends Dikopra by assaulting police officers, Yuri arrives on a motorcycle and collides with an officer. She picks up Cammy and Dikopra, finding the situation amusing. Later, Yuri watches with amusement as Cammy and Dikopra, influenced by an evil force, engage in a battle. Vega arrives and defeats Cammy. Yuri intervenes, mocking Vega as a pervert, and confronts him. Vega decides to leave temporarily. Yuri sends Cammy back to Russia with her team while planning their final attack on Shadaloo.